So I've been thinking this week, and both my daughters love animals and they're just infatuated with them, and I thought it'd be pretty cool to come over here with my dad, who's handy and knows how to use tools, and do something special. So my girls love birds. I was thinking that making a birdhouse would be really cool for them. The only problem is I am not handy at all.
Is he handy?
A little bit.
That's very nice of him to say even a little bit. Step one, get the goggles on.
So you got to keep a little pressure here,
Okay.
and then push it on through.
You ready? I'm ready. This is going to be my first time using a saw. I'm embarrassed to admit that, but here we go. Let's see how I do. All right, so where's the switch on this?
The big red switch
Okay,
right there.
there we go. Red is on and off. Ay caramba! I've learned to write, I've learned to make some videos here and there, I've learned to analyze a deal, but I have not learned how to use a saw. That has not happened.
We had him when he was growing up, but he didn't really pay much attention to him. So he's interested now.
What did I pay attention to?
Football and girls.
Hey, you know. Dave Ramsey says that debt is dumb. Robert Kiyosaki says that debt can be good. Who's right? So I think Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey are both partially right. Debt can be dumb. It can be one of the most dangerous parts of your real estate investing business if you're not careful. But Robert Kiyosaki is right that when used carefully, when used appropriately, real estate investing and debt can be a good mix, and it can be something that helps you build wealth and grow towards financial independence a lot faster. In the 17 years I've been investing in real estate, there are a lot of the things that people get scared of and worried about with tenants and lawsuits, and I've never seen anybody go out of business for that. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but I have definitely seen people go out of business because of debt, because they couldn't make their debt payments, because they ran out of cash, because they couldn't refinance the debt they had on their property. So I'm very respectful of debt, and I think you should be careful with it. And in fact, I have 5 rules that have helped me a lot in my own real estate investing business, and I'd like to share those with you right now. When you borrow money against real estate investments, you don't want to borrow against junky properties. Here's what I mean by that. You can look at all of your properties in town and your locations as having a ranking like an A, B, C, and D. Your A is your best locations, your best properties. D is your worst, typically the ones that have a little bit more crime. And so what I mean by that is you're safer if you borrow money against nicer properties, probably A, B, maybe a C plus property. Whereas if you do buy D properties or C minus, if you do borrow them, you want to get them paid off really quickly. Owing debt against a property like that for a long period of time is just more dangerous. All right, when you borrow debt, having your interest rate and your payments fixed for as long as possible is the best way to go. So what I'm talking about here is getting like a 30-year loan, a 20-year loan. Those are your best types of loans. On the other end, there's something called a balloon note and also an adjustable rate loan. Both of those are a little bit trickier. They can be dangerous, particularly in down real estate markets. One of the most dangerous things you can do is to have, let's say, for example, in 5 years, whatever you owe on your loan, you have to pay that entire amount back all at one time. That could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you remember back in 2008 and 9, when a lot of the biggest companies in the United States and around the world, a lot of the biggest real estate investors went bust, a lot of them went bust because they couldn't pay back their balloon notes. So my recommendation is fix your interest rates as long as possible, fix your payments as long as possible. A minimum of hopefully about 7-10 years. You know, if you get above that, you can sometimes outlast the cycles of real estate. If you get below that, 3 years, 5 years, you're asking for trouble. All right, so let's talk about the payment you have on your debt. When you look at the payment and compare it to what income you're bringing in on the property, you want to have what's called a high debt coverage ratio. Now, if you just think about this in a basic form, you want to have a big cushion or a big gap between what you bring in your rent after you pay all your expenses. This is also called your net operating income, if you want to get kind of technical with it. You want your net operating income to have a gap between that and what you're paying on your mortgage. And bankers are going to use a term called a debt coverage ratio. And sometimes you'll see that you need to have a minimum of like a 1.2 debt coverage ratio. But I would recommend even having even higher than that. If you could get up to 1.5, maybe even 2, meaning you're bringing in twice as much as you need to pay your mortgage payment. That gives you that nice cushion. And let's think about what could happen. What happens if you have a lot of vacancy? What happens if the rents go down over time? It's possible, it could happen. And so by having that cushion between what you're bringing in and what you pay out, it gives you some flexibility, it gives you a margin of safety that is a good rule to follow. Something called loan to value is another important consideration when you're borrowing money. So the loan to value is just the ratio, the amount of debt you borrow compared to the value of the property. And I like to shoot for a target loan to value of about 70% or less. If you think about this in real numbers, if your property was worth $100,000, you wouldn't want to borrow any more than $70,000 in order to increase your safety on that property. Now I know, like real life, sometimes when you do your first deal or two, you're gonna have to put a smaller amount down. You're going to have a higher loan to value. So these are just rules, the kind of rules of thumb to keep if you can. The final rule is perhaps the most important one, and it's to have large cash reserves. Now, no matter how much money you're borrowing, whether it's your first deal and you're just borrowing a little bit, or whether you're borrowing a lot of debt against a lot of properties, you've got to have some cash set aside. Having cash reserves is a lot like having gasoline in your engine if you're driving a car. You know, I've seen people pull up in fancy cars, you know, you got these Mercedes or Ferraris, and these are pretty cool cars, but if you don't have any gasoline in the tank, it really doesn't matter. That Mercedes or that Ferrari will sit on the side of the road just like my Toyota Avalon from 1995, you know? So having some cash reserves is really important. It's how the people that I saw go out of business in the last downturn in 2008 and 9, this is why it happened. Now, how much cash do you need to set aside? It's gonna be a personal decision, kind of like with your personal finances. I like to keep about 3 months equivalent of whatever rent I'm bringing in. So let's say you had a $5,000 rental income coming in from several rentals that you have. Well, 3 months of that would be $15,000 that you would just set aside in whatever kind of savings account you can have that you just don't touch. And if you have an emergency, if you have a heating and air go out, if you have several months where you're not getting rent coming in, that'll give you that cushion you need to get over the hump of whatever that problem time is. So cash reserves were a big deal for us, helped us get through 2008 and 9 and the downturn, and I highly recommend you do the same. You know, earlier today I was making a birdhouse with my dad. We were in his carpentry room, and it came to me that it could be pretty dangerous. He knows what he's doing. I haven't used power tools a lot before, and I could cut a finger off. I could do something bad if I wasn't careful. And debt's a lot like that. You know, if you use it incorrectly, if you're careless with it, it could lead to some bad things for your real estate investing business, but it could also build a lot of wealth. There are a lot of people who've used debt carefully and have done really well. Use it responsibly, use debt in a careful way to build wealth, and it can be really profitable for you, and it can pay off. Use it irresponsibly, then it can be very dumb. And I think you've heard some rules here that I hope will be helpful to you, that'll help you invest in a way that makes a lot of sense with debt. Hey, I'm Chad Carson. You can call me Coach Carson. You've been watching Coach Carson TV. If you're new here and you'd like to learn more about real estate investing, achieving financial independence, and doing more of what matters, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell so you won't miss anything.